Welcome to the final lecture in this lecture series on business process mining. We have already covered a lot of topics, so now what we are going to do is a course recap, and also we are going to have a look at the future trends in process mining. So to begin with, the course recap. And let's start at the very beginning, where we saw that everything that is going on in an organization can be seen as a series of different activities. Now at first glance, those activities might be disorganized, and we might not understand how everything actually fits together. In order to gain a better understanding of that, we actually want to organize those activities into something called business processes, where each process shows which types of activities are done, in which order, what are the decision points, and what are the inputs, and also what is the value delivered by this specific business process. Once we have those processes in place, we can continue on with process mining. Now, the essence of process mining is analysis and improvement of business processes based on data about business process executions in practice. And this part in practice is very important here because if we take a look at even everyday life, then actually the way people behave is sometimes quite different from what was originally intended. For example, in this picture here, you can see a walkway forming in the snow. Underneath that snow, there isn't actually any pathway made for pedestrians, but people have figured out that this is a shortcut that saves them a bit of time in their everyday life. Now, while this may seem like a strange example, this is actually how people are going to behave in an organization while doing their everyday work-related tasks as well. They are going to figure out ways to do things faster, to do things better. And also, if we take a look at how people are behaving in an organization, we can figure out where are the bottlenecks and where do we have to improve our processes, thus leading us into process mining. So let's take a look at how process mining works and what are the main techniques that we are going to be applying. At the basics of process mining are our enterprise information systems. There we have historical data about how business processes are going to be fulfilled, but also we have live data about the ongoing business processes. We want to take this data, feed it into process mining algorithms to gain some actionable process knowledge that can take the form of process models, for example. Now, a process model can be discovered automatically based on an event log. An event log, as we already have seen, is basically a table that contains information about the activities going on in our organization. It is going to have at least the case identifier, the name of the task, and also the timestamp when the task was performed. Ideally, you would like to have more information, but this is the bare minimum that you would need. Based on this information, we can automatically generate process maps. Those are simple representations of how the process is actually being fulfilled in reality. However, in some cases, we might need more complicated representations in the form of BPMN process models. For example, if we want to represent parallelism. Now, of course, process maps on their own are already very useful, but this is not the only type of knowledge that we can gain from business process mining. So in addition, we could, for example, take a look at performance measures. Those are important to show us where the bottlenecks in our process are. Let's take a look at some examples. For example, we could take one of those process maps that we looked at previously and overlay it with information about the durations. This will give us durations of the activities as well as the durations of waiting times between the activities. Or we could actually represent information about our process in the form of simple-to-read dashboards, showing us, for example, how many cases there are over time, how many resources do we have, how often are they working, what are the longest duration activities, and so on. But we can go even further than that. We can also take a look at conformance. This is to check if the rules in our process are actually followed properly. To do that, we usually are going to have a normative modeled process. This is the ideal representation of how the process is supposed to look. And then we are going to also discover automatically a business process map. And we are going to do a comparison between the two representations of the process and figure out where are the differences. And speaking of differences, we are not only restricted to looking at pre-existing process models that probably have been done by hand and might be out of date. We can also take a look at the different variants of our process, meaning that in a single process we might have, for example, regional differences that we might be interested in, or many other types of differences. And in order to do that, we take a look at variant analysis. Here the idea is to split our event log into multiple sets of cases, for example based on the repair type, and then find out the process map for both of those sets of cases and figure out the differences between them. And finally, one other technique that we took a look at was predictions. Now this is a bit less mature perhaps, but it is a very powerful and promising technique in practice where we could actually predict what is about to happen in a business process. I have outlined it in a bit of a gray here because, simply put, it's perhaps not at the same maturity level as the other techniques. And this actually is going to lead us nicely towards the future trends in process mining, which will be discussed in the next part of this lecture.